Well, hello DEF CON. My name's Paul Craig. I work for a company called securityassessment.com. I live in sunny Singapore, possibly the other place that's as hot as Vegas. I'm a pen tester, and basically I hack stuff. This is my world. Okay, so today's overview. This is a hacker conference, right? When I come to a hacker conference, the last thing I want to fucking see is PowerPoint. Why do I not want to see PowerPoint? Because PowerPoint is not hacking. All right, so I do have a slide deck. I'm going to go through my slide deck, but I specifically designed this presentation so that there's actually not a whole lot of slides. I don't really like slides. We're going to do lots of hacking. Specifically, we're going to be hacking kiosks, internet kiosk terminals. So I'm going to explain to you guys who I am, what my fetish with kiosks is about, how I break into kiosks, and then I'm just going to fucking break into kiosks, all right? And yeah, we're going to have some fun. Okay, so what is an internet kiosk? An internet kiosk, well, as you can see from the picture just there, that was taken in the Rio, it's basically that little computer sitting in the corner of a room that has internet access. So it's usually an x86 desktop running some breed of Windows, sometimes Linux. It costs you $4 or $5, and you can browse the internet and you can do something on it. You find them obviously at hotels, motels, airports, all these crazy places. Okay, so I kind of call myself the self-proclaimed king of kiosk hacking. So how did this come about? About 5 years ago, I got a pen test engagement working for a bank in New Zealand. And the pen test engagement was to look at a kiosk that they were deploying in the foyer of the bank. And this kiosk was plugged directly into the corporate network. So I rocked up. I was like, oh, I've never seen one of these kiosks before. I'm sure I can probably do something with it. And I found pretty quickly that I could actually bust through the kiosk, got access to the OS, and then from the OS I had full access to the bank's corporate network in the foyer. So I didn't even have to go through the security doors. And I think pretty much from that point on, I was fucking hooked on these things. Because I realized that it's the attack avenue that people don't really think about. It's the thing that, it's the thing that works as well. So I was hooked, fascinated, addicted, obsessed. And basically, I spent all my time hacking these kiosks. My colleagues would say to me, like, Paul, why the fuck do you want to hack these things? But I knew right then and there that I just had to become the world's best person at hacking these damn kiosks. So my colleagues continued to call me over the years that crazy kiosk guy. All I did was hack kiosks. Whenever I saw them, I had to get shell. And it actually became quite a problem for me. It became an addiction. It became something that really started to control my life. So I had to go see a psychiatrist. I found someone. I've talked about someone, and they said, look, man, you have what's called an addictive personality. Essentially, you can become addicted to things that aren't addictive. Fucking awesome. Excellent. Okay, all right. You need a distraction, I was told. You need a distraction. So like, okay, all right. Distraction number 1. Nah, it didn't really work so well. Distraction number 2. Nah, it didn't really work so well. Distraction, well, 3. Internet kiosks. They won. So, of course, the 8 stages of grief, the 7 stages of acceptance. I basically realized that there's got to be someone in the world who's hacking these kiosks. If I don't do it, the vendors are going to fucking win. We can't have that. So I said, screw it, let's take ownership of my addiction. Let's embrace my passion. Let's fucking hack all of them. Every vendor, every product, every platform, systematically, methodically, create and publish everything I do. And basically be very open about this and try and just rape and pillage all the kiosks. Yeah, hack them all. There's basically one guy from New Zealand versus the entire kiosk software industry. So I wrote a list of every kiosk vendor I could find. There's like 22, 23 of these guys. And for each vendor, I tried to produce a series of repeatable steps. I wrote tools, scripts, add-ons, plugins, all these things that helped me compromise these kiosks. And then I tried to compile all of my research and all of my tools into one place. I wanted it to be easy for all of you guys to basically hack a kiosk as well. To have me in a box, so to speak. And of course, the fruit of all my efforts became ICAT, the Interactive Kiosk Attack Tool. It's essentially a software as a service website that you visit from a kiosk, right? And this website owns the kiosk for you. You click, shells appear is basically how it goes, right? You guys see where this is going. So DEF CON 16, I rocked up to Vegas. I was like, woohoo, I got this thing called ICAT, check it out. And it went well. It actually went really, really well too well. During my presentation, I said, you guys know that you can hack all the kiosks in the Riv in about 10 seconds. And they did. for anyone who was at the Riv, they actually had the security guards in, and they had the police there, and they had people guarding the kiosks. Because basically people were just popping shells, defacing them, and having porn up on all the kiosks. And this really began the cat and mouse game of kiosks with me, and particularly with kiosk vendors. So the majority of kiosk vendors found out about iCat. They watched the presentation when the videos got released, and they started fixing all of the stuff that I found, all of my bugs. They also blocked iCat, the URL. So all right. A year later, iCat 2. I rolled around, I found new bugs. I found new exploits, new tricks, new technologies. Like, fuck you guys, I'm gonna do it again. So I did it again, and it was awesome. I got lots of shells, woohoo. And then a few months after release, same thing happened again. They fixed it all. So it's like, okay, all right. I'm a professional hacker. You can't stop me. I will win. I'll just keep going. I'm very persistent. So next year, rolled around. DEF CON 18, I released this, iCat v3. Essentially, same deal, new ODay, new tricks, new magic. And also trying to just expand everything that I could own. So I focused on Citrix terminals, touchscreen kiosks, photo kiosks, basically anything that you could interact with touch, you could pop shell on. All right? Yeah, the downside of this sort of approach is that I've actually single-handedly raised the security bar for internet kiosk terminals. Because every year these guys fix like vast quantities of bugs. Yeah. So it's good for you guys. That's awesome for you guys to clap. This makes my job a hell of a lot harder. All right, so DEF CON 19. I came up with, well, I said, screw it, let's do it again. So iCat 4, iCat V the Vengeance Edition. Basically, I'm taking vengeance against the kiosk vendors. iCat is now used by about 35 to 40 kiosks per day, all around the world. I see airports, hotels, lots and lots of places, lots of casinos. And it's now become basically the de facto standard for hacking a kiosk. And Vengeance is by far the smoothest, easiest, mostly bug-free kiosk hacking tool. It also features this very nice commissioned artwork of the iCat girl holding a bloody heart. Yeah. So this is what I'm going to be hacking some kiosks with today. Oh, look, here's a kiosk we hacked earlier. This was actually in Vegas yesterday, day before. So you can see just how well it works. Okay, so a little bit about how kiosks work, how the kiosk security model works. Kiosk vendors obviously take security very seriously. The reason they take security very seriously is that a secure kiosk product is not a cheap kiosk product. So you see lots of words about monitoring and protecting and blocking and restricting, user access, system management, PC lockdown, access controls. Basically, they try and stop me from doing stuff on the kiosk and stop you guys. Now, how do they do this? They do this through 4 distinct methods. Firstly, they have what's called user interface security. You find that on a kiosk, you're missing all the buttons. You're missing maybe like the start bar, you're missing menus, toolbars. You're missing the functionality you want. You're missing the way to get to Explorer or pop shell. The second thing you'll notice is that you have an activity blacklist. If you do pop shell, the kiosk will probably detect that you popped a shell and then try and close the shell. Be like, oh, no, you're running a tool which is prohibited. Thirdly, the kiosk is usually running in a hardened kiosk environment. So you'll find group policy, SRP, and app locker throughout the kiosk. So they try and restrict you and block you at every possible level. Okay, so this is an example of how a kiosk basically locks itself down. This is Site Kiosk. These guys really fucking hate me. We see that when we run Site Kiosk, just how much the XP desktop environment changes. So we have standard XP here. We run Site Kiosk. Bang, the start bar disappears, and it gets replaced with this one which is a kind of clone. And it's kind of gummy, like it's missing all the stuff. And we're now inside the jailed kiosk environment. We're now inside their little shell. All right, so these are the things I've learned about the kiosk security model. Firstly, blacklists don't work. In the security industry, we know that blacklists do not work. If you stop me from doing one thing, I'll do it a different way. Because there's like 10 million ways of doing the exact same thing on any modern operating system. The second thing I found was that websites you visit from a kiosk terminal usually have more access controls or access rights than you as a person on the kiosk itself. All right, so none of the vendors really took in consideration of the remote attack. They just didn't think someone would do it. Thirdly, the underlying browser libraries that these kiosks are based on, they're usually IE. All right? So IE has this security model where it basically trusts the dude on the keyboard. It'll ask you, it'll say, do you want to run this? Are you sure you want to run this? This can potentially come from a malicious website. Well, if you're hacking the kiosk, you say, yes. This is a problem. And lastly, Microsoft has these 10 immutable laws of security. And basically, law number 3, if a bad guy has unrestricted physical access to your computer, it's not your computer anymore, it's fucking mine. Right? So operating systems will trust the local user, so kiosk software has to go against the grain of the operating system. Essentially, the kiosk vendors have the hardest job in the world because the operating system is trying to contrast what the kiosk software is doing. And all you need is one instance. All you need is one instance where the kiosk platform will trust you, and then bang, you got shell. And as you'll see, it's very easy to get shell. Okay, so hacking kiosk. The great thing about hacking kiosk is that it's really goddamn easy. It's like solving a puzzle. Essentially, the problem is, how do you pop shell without a start bar? All right, so maybe you go like file, open, and then find start bar, or find cmd.exe and run that. Maybe you find a creative or a different way of using Windows in order to get what you want. It's very visual, it's very easy to follow, and I actually think it's very hackery, you know, like you can almost see this in Hackers the movie kind of thing. All right, so this is my approach for breaking kiosk. This is a quick rundown of my methodology. First thing I do is I try and identify the platform and the vendor software in use. I figure out what my attack platform is. All right? I'll show you guys ICAD and I'll run through how I do this using my tool. But essentially I have a button that says detect applications. And it goes around and it tells you what's on the kiosk, what's installed, and what you have to fuck with. We can also visually tell quite a few things. So this is a Linux kiosk. I can tell it's a Linux kiosk because the mouse cursor isn't as well drawn as the Windows one, and it's got that funny little stopwatch thing. The buttons have a different level of depth and a different amount of color. We can tell that this is Linux just visually by looking at it. On the other hand, this is Windows. We can tell the mouse cursor is different. All right? We can also tell because it's got all this fucking crap on the page. We can visually really identify what our platform is. So the next thing I do is I try and enumerate all of the available windows. All right? So what I'm looking for when I say enumerate windows is I'm looking for a common dialog. It's a file open, file print, file save. The reason I want file open or file save is that these controls essentially use Explorer, and Explorer is WebDAV enabled. All right, so let me put this in a different way. If I can get Notepad to spawn up on a kiosk, I can use Notepad and go file open, http://file. And it will download that file and put it into Notepad, because the file open box is WebDAV enabled. It's essentially a web browser. So anything we use that has file open, we can retrieve files. Anything that has file save, we can actually save files remotely using WebDAV. So we find creditcards.txt, we can file save to another place. The third thing I do is I try and enumerate all of the applications that are installed. So I look to see if there's a PDF reader installed. Is Office installed? Microsoft Media Player? Is anything installed on the kiosk that I can potentially leverage to pop shell? So can I load a PDF file which will then load cmd.exe? Can I load an Excel file which will have an embedded cmd.exe inside of it? In all these file format tricks, can I use another handling application to escape out of the kiosk shell? And we can also try different methods of trying to retrieve these files. We might find that a kiosk will restrict downloading XLS files, but if we download like file.xls?.txt, then the file gets retrieved. So these are standard vulnerabilities, typically web application vulnerabilities that we see in kiosk software. So, yeah, I had this email. I get a lot of fan email, I guess you'd say. And it's this dude from Egypt. And he was like, hey, Paul, I want to hack the Egyptian tax kiosk. I was like, holy shit, man, if you get